President-elect Trump's pick for Attorney General has removed his name from consideration. In a post on X, Gaetz says his nomination had become a distraction for the Trump transition team. Now, the announcement comes amid allegations of sexual misconduct on the part of Gaetz, allegations which Gaetz has denied. I want to go straight to Jesse Burns, senior editor here at The Hill, for reaction. Jesse, there were these meetings between Gaetz, Vice President-elect J.D. Vance, and Republican senators yesterday. The message we got coming out of them was everything went well, but it seems with this announcement that that might not have been the case.
No, Drew, and it was very clear for the last couple of days. I mean, it's been clear since this nomination was announced that it was going to be an uphill battle to get to the 50 senators that Gaetz would have needed, the Republican senators, mind you, to actually get confirmed. And this was an uphill battle for a long time. The writing was on the wall that this was going to be very challenging, and the Trump team pulling the plug on this relatively early before this played out. Now, Republican senators, even John Cornyn, was saying that this could have been Kavanaugh on steroids, alluding to the very bitter confirmation battle over Justice Brett Kavanaugh from 2018, which really left the Senate divided along party lines on nominations at large. So this is an indication not only that this nomination was doomed to fail, but it's also to some degree an acknowledgement that it would have been a large distraction away from President-elect's agenda for the first 100 days. Having a bitter confirmation battle play out for the world to see, of course, would have been a huge distraction, but that element of the statement saying that he had a lot of momentum is just untrue. A lot of Republican senators were saying they would hear him out, but very clearly signaling that this was going to be a huge lift.
And the announcement comes amid this fight over this report from the Ethics Committee. Yesterday, members of that committee in the House voted along party lines to, for now, keep it under wraps. But elements of that investigation are starting to leak out into the public. The New York Times had this graph of a web of payments going between Gaetz and his friends and these women. Is that, slow trickle, the prospect of the slow trickle of details of this report continuing to spill out in the public, part of the reason why you think this ended up sinking?
Well, there's certainly two elements to this. There's the DOJ investigation, which of course was closed earlier this year without charges. Senate Democrats and other Democrats are pushing to get details from the FBI investigation that went into that to actually see what they uncovered. Simultaneous, you also have the House Ethics Committee, which has been investigating off and on for the past 3 years these allegations surrounding Gaetz. And so now there is certainly going to be, at least the Republican side, there are going to be fewer calls for that report to be released because it's a lot less of a threshold. He's no longer going to be coming before the Senate in a confirmation hearing. There's still, though, of course, the question of will he actually serve in the House? You'll remember he resigned from the 118th Congress, which will end here in the coming weeks. But a new Congress will be convening in early January, and he just won re-election to that. And so there is this open question of will he actually serve in that. This report, of course, Democrats, Sean Cassidy from Illinois, who has been pushing to use a maneuver to force the House to reveal this report, he has already indicated that he is going to continue to push for that to happen. So in the near term, although this does reduce calls for the details of that report to be released from the House Ethics Panel, there's still going to be calls from Democrats for these allegations to be revealed to the public.
This is not exactly a smooth start for the Trump administration. We were told that this time around that he has a better grasp of how Washington works, who he wants to serve in these key roles. For him to make this such an important nomination and then only for it to be withdrawn so quickly doesn't seem like, again, a great start for the Trump administration.
Well, and there have been, some reporting that the Trump team was caught off guard by some of the allegations with another nominee pick, Pete Hegseth, for defense secretary, some of his own allegations regarding sexual misconduct from the past that have been brought forward. And so to some extent, you can view this Gaetz news as the adults in the room winning out. They knew that the Gaetz nomination was doomed to fail. They didn't want to waste any more precious time on this. At the same time, it does throw a wrinkle now into some of these other nominations. Now there is a crack in the wall when it comes to defending all of these Trump picks. Now, to some extent, yes, you have Gaetz out of the way, so maybe that takes off some of the heat, but it might empower and embolden some of these Democrats and some Republicans who have questions about some of these other picks, Tulsi Gabbard for DNI chief, as well as Pete Hegseth for defense secretary. Now, Republicans at large have been holding their fire on these nominations. They say they want to meet with these candidates. They want to hear their plans for these agencies, but it certainly now sets the precedent that the Trump team is willing to pull the plug on a cabinet nominee, and they don't want to force these Republican senators to use a lot of their political capital for nominations that perhaps aren't going to get that 50 or 51 vote threshold.
With Gaetz gone, there's obviously now a big hole in the incoming Trump cabinet. You know, this is a spot that he has keyed in on as being crucial to his policy in the coming administration. Who do you see as possible options for him to turn to now that Gaetz is out?
Well, the complicating factor here is, of course, that some of the top names that were already floated prior to Gaetz being announced, such as John Ratcliffe, the former DNI, who has now been named for CIA director. We also have Matt Whitaker, the former acting attorney general at the end of the prior Trump administration. He's been announced as Trump's pick as ambassador to NATO. Those now are on their own tracks for different roles. Mike Lee, senator from Utah, it was a name that was previously floated. I think we're going to go back to the drawing board. The Trump team's going to have to go back to the drawing board for some of these. It's also important to remember Trump has already announced his picks for the number 2 position at the DOJ with Todd Blanche, who is, of course, his personal attorney. He defended him in the hush money trial in New York, as well as the number 3 spot at the DOJ and other positions. So it remains to be seen kind of how this now will impact those, if there's any kind of domino effect when it comes to the scrutiny. But it's certainly back to the drawing board for the Trump team to find a pick who they are pretty sure is going to actually sail through the confirmation process and won't put up as many headaches for the team as Matt Gaetz did.
Obviously, a breaking news story we will continue to follow. Jesse Burns, senior editor here at The Hill, thanks so much for coming on, and thanks for watching. For more on this breaking news story, go to thehill.com. Back to your regularly scheduled program.